Life can be messy, but you don't have to figure it out alone.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Join pastors and best-selling authors Levi and Jenny Lusko on Hey, It's the Luskos for honest conversations about faith, marriage, family, grief, ministry, and all the unexpected moments in between. You'll laugh, you'll be encouraged, and you'll be reminded that God is faithful through every season.
It will always come back to Jesus in the end.
That's right. Tune in to Hey, It's the Luskos with Levi and Jenny Lusko. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
The world is becoming increasingly proficient at telling stories that deny God. As such, we need Thinking Christian to become as natural as breathing. Welcome to the Thinking Christian podcast. I'm Dr. James Spencer. Through calm, thoughtful, theological discussions, Thinking Christian highlights the ways God is working in the world and questions the underlying social, cultural, and political assumptions that hinder Christians from becoming more like Christ. Now, on to today's episode of Thinking Christian. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Thinking Christian. I'm Dr. James Spencer, and I'm joined again by Dr. Gary Edward Schnittjer. And we're going to be talking today a little bit about Ezra-Nehemiah. And Gary's written a commentary on Ezra-Nehemiah that's coming out in the Baker Commentary series. So I'd just encourage you to check that out. I would also encourage you to go to his Substack, carpentersstudent.com. That's with two S's in the middle, carpentersstudent.com. And, yeah, we're just going to jump in. And one of the things I find when I teach on Ezra and Nehemiah is that people are a little confused about how these books actually work together. We have a lot of these books in the Old Testament that sort of get crammed together because, maybe they don't warrant a full class, or, you just want to teach, a few books at a time. But Ezra and Nehemiah is a little different. And so, Gary, if we can start there, what's the connection between these two books and how do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a really great place to start. But I even like the way you framed the question. Like, you teach on Ezra and Nehemiah? That's great. Not everybody does that. They're kind of the poor stepchild in the Old Testament. Well, yeah. In the New Testament, we have 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. Those are two separate letters. Of course, they're to the same people. But in the Old Testament, there's three books that we know of as 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Those are one book. Now, back then, they used scrolls. Scrolls are a pain. And so to make them more manageable, they broke these huge scrolls into two smaller scrolls, which they named 1st and 2nd. Ezra and Nehemiah is the same situation as that. It's one story, one book, but it's easier scrolling to do in two scrolls. Now, when we had a whole discussion with this, the folks at Baker, when they actually called a meeting, James. At their meeting, they decided, what should we call this commentary? And they decided, let's call it Ezra and Nehemiah. But then, even when they brought it back to me, they brought it with an en dash, as though it was the book of Ezra through the book of Nehemiah. I said, no. It needs to be a hyphen. I'm like, yeah. Well, a hyphen. And I said, yeah, it's on the analogy. And I explained 1st and 2nd Chronicles and all that. And they're like, yeah. Well, then it should be Ezra and Nehemiah. I said, no. I said, it can be 1st Ezra and Nehemiah and 2nd Ezra and Nehemiah. It could be that, but it's one book. And so we need to sort of reflect that in the title. And I think you're right. It gets treated as two books usually in the English Bible.
It does. Yeah. I mean, you have that hard division. Now, you have that in 1st and 2nd Samuel too, but because it's Samuel and Samuel, people tend to get the connection. Kings and Kings, Chronicles and Chronicles. You tend to get that sort of continuity between the two. But with Ezra and Nehemiah, because you have the two different names there and really two different characters dominating the narrative in this different sets of book, it can feel like it's two separate narratives. Yeah.
But I think that we do ourselves a disservice. It's already a very hard book to interpret.
Yeah.
And so if we break it into a half book, then it becomes almost just obscure. So it's very important to think of it in terms of its coherence and unity across the entire book of Ezra-Nehemiah.
Yeah, because you only get sort of a partial closure at the end of Ezra's main part, and I'm speaking of the character Ezra at this point. You only get a partial closure at the end of his main thrust, and then you move into Nehemiah. You have to almost wait till the end of Nehemiah to really get the whole scope and understanding of what's going on in the overarching narrative. And they do inform one another to some degree.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the complexity is something we've not attended to. My commentary has two angles, really. It goes through passage by passage like normal, but a couple of neglected things that have really needed to be surfaced. And so there are things I emphasize in my commentary. One is the bad ending. It has a bad ending.
Yeah.
But what's amazing in the literature, and this is both in the literature for pastors and Bible study guides, and also even for the technical literature, which is more familiar to Old Testament folks like myself and yourself, the bad ending, a few people acknowledge it, but then they deny it. They say, oh, it's an appendix. The book ends in Nehemiah 12 with the parade around the walls of Jerusalem. And that's in the major technical commentaries say this, Eskenazis and Williamson's and others.
Right.
So there's just a surprising lack of treating the book with a bad ending. And so it's very important to think that though this book starts on a high note, the Yahweh's fulfillment of his word through the prophet Jeremiah, through his servant, the Messiah, Cyrus. It starts on this wonderful fulfillment, but the book at its end leads to a bad ending. And so I don't think that there's been, amazingly, adequate study of this book within the framework of a bad ending. Yeah. By the time we get to this end of the book, Nehemiah, who I love Nehemiah, but he's practically an American, but he's walking around Jerusalem. They have the walls, they have Torah reading, they have Sabbath keeping, but everything's in full rebellion. And so he uses his goons to beat people up and chase people away and scream at people and rip their hair out. But we have the real sense, like, all of the collective reformations that we've seen, a series of these in Ezra-Nehemiah, they're gone. At the end, it's just Nehemiah alone in his zeal. And we say, if the exile was supposed to reform people, it didn't work.
Didn't.
I mean, we need, if God's going to fulfill his word, if he's going to bring to pass all that he promised, he's going to have to do it another way. Yeah. And that really sets us up for the prophet that arises from Nazareth.
So I've looked at that bad ending for a long time. And one of the things that I sort of started just thinking about was the canonical arrangement of the Old Testament. So English readers know that the Old Testament ends in, as I used to tell my freshman students, Malachi, the last Italian prophet. And so it ends in Malachi. But the Hebrew canon actually ended with what we know as Second Chronicles. And at the end of Second Chronicles, you have this sort of looking forward and hope. The Jews haven't gone back to the land yet. They haven't, you don't see this quote unquote bad ending just yet. It ends on a note of hope, looking forward to something that's going to come. And I actually think that's really helpful. It helped me when I was looking at this bad ending in Nehemiah to realize that even though this is embedded and it's a little out of sequence and it doesn't chronologically fit a clean narrative across the whole thing, the Jews are still hoping for more at the end of their canon. And they have this moment within Ezra and Nehemiah where you sit back and you say, yes, we're still hoping for more. It hasn't come yet, but we know that it will, despite the situation we're describing here. I actually think the bad ending is crucial to understanding what the Jews believe is happening, right? But also, obviously, the theology that is being conveyed here is that we're going to need God's intervention. Something else is going to have to come in here. The law is insufficient. The practices are insufficient. The cult is insufficient. We've got to be looking forward to more. And I'm just sort of, like I said, I don't know that there's any sort of technical connection between all of that, but just as an early reader of these texts, that's where I landed when I looked at that arrangement.
Well, good. We're kindred spirits in that, but it's the literature is not that way. The literature that's out there in all its variety is about a happily ever after Hollywood ending. And so people have found a way to ignore the way that Ezra-Nehemiah is. But I guess your point is to put it in the context of the whole Old Testament. Now, the BHS, and I guess they follow the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, and in Chronicles. The BHQ, once they finish going through the editorializing of it, they're going to put it in the order of the Leningrad Codex, where Ezra-Nehemiah is actually last. So they're going to kind of mess everything up, both with NA29 is going to mess up the order of the New Testament, and BHQ is going to mess up the order of the Old Testament that we're used to anyway. But that's very interesting that it is sort of last, because it goes after Chronicles, right? 2 Chronicles 36 overlaps Ezra 1. So
that's right.
Sort of Ezra-Nehemiah is a good ending, but or is a appropriate ending. But then in the Babylonian Talmud, it's arranged the way you say. They put Ezra-Nehemiah before Chronicles, and it ends on this hopeful note, which is, I agree with you, that there's this sense of we know that Chronicles, the immediate sequel is going to end in failure. But Chronicles is a good way to reach past that failure that we already know about and say, no,
that's right.
We need to, all those among his people, let them go up to Jerusalem.
Yes.
I mean, that's the right ending.
Yeah, it isn't that this sort of, in this moment, the people coming back to Jerusalem and rebuilding the walls is the end of all things. Like, we finally come to this solution that we've always wanted, and we're back from exile, and it's all puppies and rainbows. It's not that. And they know that. And so to end on this note of we've still got to push forward, we've still got to look ahead for what God is going to do with us, I think is really a fantastic reading. And I don't fully grasp, I'm with you on the critical scholarship, I don't fully understand why people ignore that last chapter of Nehemiah, because to me it fits so well with the overarching message that we see, whether that's in the prophets, whether that's in, the rest of the Old Testament, or even in the New. Even if you just look at something like Ezekiel 36, 26, and 27, right? There is going to have to be something more than just bringing you back from exile. I'm going to have to change your heart from stone to flesh. I'm going to have to put my spirit within you to empower you to keep my laws and commands. And so that hasn't happened yet, but we have clear evidence that it needs to. And so to me, that Ezra-Nehemiah ending fits with that sort of broader Old Testament theology, I suppose.
Let me ask you a serious question. If something triggered a major market drop in the coming months, would your retirement be ready or exposed? With inflation, market volatility, and ongoing global uncertainty, more families are taking a closer look at whether their retirement plan is truly built to hold up. And many are finding that adding a layer of protection makes a lot of sense. Sanctuary Metals is a Christian-owned company that helps families strengthen their retirement savings with physical gold and silver through a gold IRA. During uncertain times, many people look to precious metals as a way to add stability when other assets may be under pressure. If you'd like to explore whether a gold IRA is a good fit for your situation, Sanctuary Metals makes it easy to get started. Text GUIDE to 94878 to receive your free retirement defense guide, or call 888-958-6579 to speak with one of their knowledgeable team members. Again, text GUIDE to 94878 or call 888-958-6579. Let's be honest. Ever read a passage and wonder what it really means in its original context? True Bible study isn't just casual reading. It's about connecting historical background, cross-references, and themes. If you've ever felt like navigating all that is just too difficult, you need to check out Logos. Logos is a game-changing platform that equips you to explore hard questions with absolute confidence, knowing you're drawing from reliable, well-respected academic resources. Whether you're at your desk or on the go, Logos helps you follow that path of discovery naturally. With their new AI tools, you can ask Logos any biblical question and get trusted answers from a biblical library. To help you dive into the layers of meaning in the Word, Logos is offering my listeners an exclusive free 60-day trial. Just go to logos.com/deep. That's LOGOS.com/deep to claim your free 60-day trial. Let's stop guessing and start going deeper together.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Torah ends, right, across the Jordan River. It's not in the Promised Land proper yet. That's how we call it the former prophets, the rise and the fall of the Hebrew kingdom in Joshua, Judges, Samuel, King. It ends in exile. Yes, Jehoiachin is released, but he's still just, he's in exile. Yeah. And that's how the prophets end, waiting for, the return of Moses and Elijah there in Malachi, as you would say, or Malachi, as we say.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting is, again, I don't want to go too far afield from Ezra and Nehemiah, but I think it's interesting to consider all of the different places where the Bible, I wouldn't just say the Old Testament, but the whole Bible leaves us in an anticipatory state. We're not in any particularly different sort of state now. We're anticipating something that is to come, but we're living within the groanings of creation, waiting for, the glorification of the sons of God. Romans 8 has that sort of gesturing forward too.
Yeah, I don't want to get waylaid in the New Testament either, but the whole idea of the Lord rising from the dead and ascending on high, but his people are the marginalized and the just the riffraff of society, if you will. It's not the dominant culture. It's not until the emperor is converted to Christianity that Christianity becomes part of the prevailing culture. So we come from a heritage that's upside down from the way the whole Bible was. We're used to Christianity being the prevailing culture, but that's not the way any part of the Bible is framed.
So if we skip back just with that point, if we skip back to the Jews coming back from exile into Jerusalem, they are a marginal class. I mean, they are being allowed to come back. They're not an autonomous nation at this point. And Ezra recognizes this, knows that it's not just about rebuilding the temple and the walls and all those kind of things. It's not just about being in the city. There has to be something more. And so he begins teaching on the law. How do you think about that entree into this? Like, why is Ezra teaching on the law so significantly? And why does he touch on the very particular laws that he does?
So let me just probe a little further.
Yeah.
Are you asking me about Ezra 9 and 10, the big divorce? Or are you asking me about Nehemiah chapter 8, the reading Torah and this?
Let's go Nehemiah 8 first, and then maybe we'll circle back around to the other Ezra stuff. Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so in Nehemiah 8, it's really this complex, and it's a really just one of the really wonderful parts of all of Scripture to be in, because they're studying Scripture in such a vibrant way. So we have Nehemiah 8 where they read and study Scripture among the people, not just the priestly class, among the people for 11 days. And then in Nehemiah chapter 9, the Levites lead the people in a Scripture-saturated prayer. It's the longest panoramic retrospective prayer in all of Scripture that starts all the way at the beginning and comes all the way up to their moment. And then Nehemiah chapter 10, the people in writing sign an oath, a solemn oath that they're going to obey. So only your viewers can see this. I'm holding my hands out right now, if you're listening. Torah says this, but then the people say, no, we're going to do more than this. I'm raising my hands a little higher. So all of the things they promise to do are above the standards that Torah calls the people to do. So it's this really exciting moment of 11 days of scripture study. They sort of revive the way they do tabernacles and celebrate that. They have the Levites lead them in this great prayer of confession, this retrospective sort of realigning their identity. And then they promise to obey God and be faithful to him. And they don't quite come out with what they're asking for, but it seems probably from the retrospective that they're hoping that if Abraham was faithful and God blessed him, we're going to be faithful and maybe you do a little bit of Abraham stuff for us.
Yeah, yeah.
But it all begins there in Nehemiah 8 with, this exciting moment of Ezra reading Torah. I think, James, what a lot of people don't pause to see is that this is not Ezra's idea. The people say to him, get the Torah scroll and read it to us.
Yeah.
And this isn't at the temple. This is at the Watergate. So this is a public event. It's not and it's not on a worship day. They do later in chapter 8, during Tabernacles, they do have scripture reading on the holy days as well.
Right.
But it begins with the people. It's their desire to study scripture. And so we don't know of anything like this collective scripture study for 11 days anywhere in scripture. The only thing that's close to it is maybe the early days of the Way in Acts.
Yeah.
But that's not focused as much on scripture study as what we have here in Ezra-Nehemiah.
Yeah. It's really fascinating. As you think through the dynamic, you talked about, Abraham was faithful. God blessed Abraham. Maybe if we're faithful, God will bless up like he blessed Abraham. Do you see in any of this sort of a continued misunderstanding of what Torah requires, even after the reading and even after the signed oath? Or do you see this as a genuine expression of, we get it, we want to commit ourselves to this teaching, even though they're not able to, right? How do you think about that?
I think it's a mixed bag, but I want to say it's no different for them than it is for us.
Right.
It's no different for them than it is for Jesus' followers or the Pharisees of his day.
Sure.
There's something to our zeal and our desire. I mean, as Deuteronomy says, it's not too hard for you, right? It's there in your mouth. And so there is a sense where Torah is given to, as the Ten Commandments says, all Yahweh lovers obey Scripture. Mm-hmm. But what we find ourselves is in the camp of the Yahweh haters who put something before God. And so I think that the people are not wrong to study Torah and try to obey Torah. I think that Ezra 8, 9, and 10 is just a moment that all of us should embrace. It really is a moment that shows the best of us, because, I mean, these are the people that captivity is sort of waned now that the Persians have taken over, but it's better living there because living in Judah, it's a wasteland. Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage, after the people rebelled once again in 582, this is 4 years after the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple, when they assassinated Gedaliah, the governor, he came back and he decimated the infrastructures. So when we look back, say, to our great-grandparents' generation of the Great Depression of the United States, it's those 3 years in 1930 to 1933 where it just marked the whole generation, and we still feel the reverberation of it in our current culture. Well, it's like that, except it goes on for hundreds of years in Judah. I mean, it's really tough living there. And that's why when the people come back, they're the best of the people, because they're leaving sort of their stable ghettos and slave camps back in Babylonia where life is predictable. and they're going to a place where they don't know how they're going to provide for their families. Yeah. And that's why there's this special temptation towards intermarriage with the established folks of the land. We find it all of these social destabilizing moments. In Deuteronomy and Joshua, there's teachings for, hey, don't marry unbelievers. It's tempting, but don't. Don't give your sons to their daughters. Don't take their sons for your daughters. Don't do that. Right. And the same temptation is there in Ezra-Nehemiah. And it's very understandable because ancient people in an arranged marriage culture, they want to help their children, and they know that they're starving. In Ezra-Nehemiah, we know, Nehemiah 5, because of the poverty, many people had to sell their children, even their daughters, into debt slavery. And they can't redeem their daughters back. That's the nature of it in Exodus 21. So it's a very hard time. So we can understand the temptation to better their children by marrying them into established peoples of the land. So it's a tough thing because people tend to do the worst things for the best reasons. Yeah. And the days of Ezra-Nehemiah are no different in that respect than our own.
Let me ask you a serious question. If something triggered a major market drop in the coming months, would your retirement be ready or exposed? With inflation, market volatility, and ongoing global uncertainty, more families are taking a closer look at whether their retirement plan is truly built to hold up. And many are finding that adding a layer of protection makes a lot of sense. Sanctuary Metals is a Christian-owned company that helps families strengthen their retirement savings with physical gold and silver through a gold IRA. During uncertain times, many people look to precious metals as a way to add stability when other assets may be under pressure. If you'd like to explore whether a gold IRA is a good fit for your situation, Sanctuary Metals makes it easy to get started. Text GUIDE to 94878 to receive your free retirement defense guide, or call 888-958-6579 to speak with one of their knowledgeable team members. Again, text GUIDE to 94878 or call 888-958-6579. Let's be honest. Ever read a passage and wonder what it really means in its original context? True Bible study isn't just casual reading. It's about connecting historical background, cross-references, and themes. If you've ever felt like navigating all that is just too difficult, you need to check out Logos. Logos is a game-changing platform that equips you to explore hard questions with absolute confidence, knowing you're drawing from reliable, well-respected academic resources. Whether you're at your desk or on the go, Logos helps you follow that path of discovery naturally. With their new AI tools, you can ask Logos any biblical question and get trusted answers from a biblical library. To help you dive into the layers of meaning in the Word, Logos is offering my listeners an exclusive free 60-day trial. Just go to logos.com/deep. That's LOGOS.com/deep to claim your free 60-day trial. Let's stop guessing and start going deeper together.
Let's tease out a little bit of that, because I think that, again, whenever I've interacted with people on the intermarriage issue, what inevitably comes up is, there's going to be a religious or ideological drift. That you're supposed to stay away from these people so that you don't adopt their foreign gods. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think that's wholly wrong, right? I think that depending on what narrative you're looking at, that can actually be correct, right? Like, sure, this is what's going on here. It really has never seemed to me that that's what's going on in Ezra. It seems to me that there's something more fundamentally, there's something more fundamental to Jewish identity going on there. And to, I would almost argue, more theological going on there. Not the adoption of foreign gods, but the development of dependency on foreign nations as opposed to trusting the Lord. How would you navigate through that?
Well, in terms of the big point you're making, I want to embrace it. Yeah. The thing that needs to be tweaked on the front end, though, is people just read into the text. Ezra-Nehemiah is very careful as a book as a whole. Yeah. So I don't know it's made up of many sources. So the editor might have, editor might have had to tweak them to do this, but nowhere are the others defined as Gentiles. Nowhere.
Okay.
They're defined as unbelievers. And so there's a sense of which, because there's a whole hodgepodge of people. And we need to remember that the book of Ezra-Nehemiah covers 200 years. The main narrative covers about 120, but then there's another 100 years there. And it's contemporaneous with the, it begins with the edict of Cyrus and goes to the rise of the last list goes to when Alexander the Great comes. So it's exactly on the Persian Empire. Anyway, the point being here, though, that the other is ever present. There's an opposition between God's people, Israel, the Yahwistic Judeans. They're called many things in this book, and the other, the enemy, the peoples of the lands. But it's the peoples of the lands. Those peoples of the lands, some of them are Judeans who were never exiled. Some of the peoples of the lands are people that were brought there by the old Assyrian Empire who reshuffled peoples, and they were exiled to Israel.
Yeah.
Some of these people are from the northern kingdom. Some of these people are Gentiles, and a lot of them are intermarried from any of these different lines of people.
Yeah.
So the book never, though, names them as foreigners. Even in Ezra 9:1, the report of the leaders of Jerusalem that Ezra agrees with, they say they act like the Canaanites acted. They don't say they are Canaanites. And actually, there's actually no such thing as Canaanites anymore.
Yeah.
But they act like that. And so it's a very different thing. So that's the problem, is these non-covenantal others. And then getting back to the really perceptive thing you said, when the wives are put away, and it's wives, because there is evidence in Nehemiah chapter 6 that Judean females are marrying out.
Okay.
So it's both genders, males and females are marriage, but it's a patriarchal culture. So there's no apostasy husbands. There's only apostasy wives.
Right.
The apostasy husbands are, you've already sent your daughters out to them. They're dead to you. But think about it again in economic terms. There's evidence from the Elephantine papyri that we have that when women left the marriage, they take their dowries with them. So anybody that's marrying to get an economic or social advantage, when they're forced to divorce their spouses, they lose those economic and social advantages.
Yes.
So it's not, the women, they're part of an established society. They take those advantages with them. So I think that we have things a little bit backwards sometimes when we think of this. And maybe one more point, and this isn't your question, but it's one more lingering thing in here.
Yeah.
We tend to be very individualistic when we focus on the personal things that happen to the people in these mass divorces that happen over and over again in Ezra-Nehemiah. Ezra-Nehemiah never focuses on the individual in the mass divorce. They're all collective revival events. They're all collective repentances. Yes, there are individual circumstances, and divorce is always painful for every single one. But none of that's the issue in Ezra-Nehemiah.
Yeah.
There's this zealous, social, cultural, it's the whole society saying, we need to get right with God or God's wrath is going to break out upon us. That's basically Ezra's prayer in Ezra 9.
Yeah.
He's thrown himself on the ground, ripping his hair out. The people are weeping. And they agree. And he doesn't come out with the words, but he agrees with it, that Shechaniah says, then we should divorce our wives. And so he uses language that's only used here and in 1 Kings 11. He says, the foreign wives. Now, the foreign wives in 1 Kings 11, same thing as in Ezra-Nehemiah. Yeah. It's not their ethnicity that's an issue. I think that's not a problem because, right, you think about Rehoboam's mom, the Ammonitess. That's not an issue. Right? The crown prince is from an Ammonitess. The issue is that these are marrying out. These are marriage treaties that Solomon's getting into. They're not converts. They're not assimilations. They're worshiping at the high places to their own gods that Solomon builds for them all around the temple that he's building, so that their dads, the kings of all these nations, don't get upset and come give Solomon any trouble. Solomon's the peace king, and he makes peace in the bedroom with all of these treaty wives. So anyway, that kind of got lost there, but the point I'm getting at is in Ezra-Nehemiah, there's no sense, there's no attention at all given to the individual hardships of the divorces. The focus is all collective and corporate on God's wrath is going to break upon us, and so we need to do this extraordinary thing and hold a mass divorce. And they force the mass divorces, in some cases, upon the people.
That is why you wrote the commentary, man. I had never, I kind of missed that whole, I knew it. I knew when you raised 1 Kings 11, 2 Kings 11. I was like, yeah, the foreign wives, that makes perfect sense there. I'd never caught it in Ezra-Nehemiah. Like I just hadn't thought through it. That's fantastic.
Shechaniah uses that term, foreign women, that's only used in the plural there and in 1 Kings 11. Nehemiah 13, Nehemiah comes back around to that, and he says, when he's ripping out the hair of the faces of these men who are in apostate marriages, again, every 12 years they have one of these big divorces. But then in the end of Ezra-Nehemiah, Nehemiah is not getting them to divorce. He's just ripping their hair out and beating them up and cursing them. But he says to them, is this not what happened to Solomon when he married all of these foreign women?
That's right.
And even he who was loved by the Lord was drawn astray. Nehemiah puts words to it. Yeah.
No, it's a great connection. No, that helps clear up so much. And it's so much cleaner. Who was I reading? Jason Staples, I think is his name. He wrote a book here recently on dealing with the various ways that Israel is used in the Old Testament, and then Judean is used in the New Testament, which was really helpful and fascinating. His argument was that the Israelites were not considered Judean, but that the Judeans could be considered Israelites. It was a subset within. And so just as you were talking through all that, it's like, yes, that makes good sense. Like you've got a covenantal structure. The people who are concerning are the people who are outside of that covenantal structure. They're now being globbed on to covenantal people and creating these sort of rifts and problems, which is sort of fascinating.
Man, you've got it made. So podcasters like you get people to come on their podcast. You're reading books before they're published. You're reading all this recent literature.
I know.
So like everybody like me, like all the hoi polloi, we're all like 10 years behind you. And so you kind of have to have cocktail parties with all the podcasters to have current conversations.
It's the only reason I do it. No.
That sounds great.
Well, Gary, this has been really helpful, and I just encourage everybody, go get Ezra-Nehemiah Baker Commentary series, Baker Commentary on the Old Testament series. Ezra-Nehemiah is just, I wouldn't say it's my favorite set of books, but I really do love them. I think I've always been sort of a narrative guy. And so I started with Pentateuch, but I've taught through Samuel, Kings, and Ezra-Nehemiah. And Ezra-Nehemiah is just this fantastic moment after the exile that if we can get our head around it, we have such a stronger understanding of what is really going on here, what God is trying to do, how all this is working. It's a fantastic set of books, and I think Gary's commentary would be a great guide. So Ezra-Nehemiah is the title, and and you can find it on Amazon. Also, check out Gary's Substack, carpentersstudent.com. That's carpenters with an S, student with an S.com. So 2 S's together there. And yeah, Gary, thanks for being here. Thanks for talking us through this. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, James. A real pleasure, especially with somebody who teaches on Ezra-Nehemiah. That's exciting. That is really exciting.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting the commentary, reading through it, and teaching on this again. I think I'm going to plan for my next set of Wednesday Bible studies. We're doing Philippians right now, and then I'll flop them over into Ezra-Nehemiah. They won't know what's going on. So it's going to be beautiful.
Perfect.
Anyway, well, we'll catch everybody on the next episode of Thinking Christian. So come on back. We're going to be talking a little bit about what is interbiblical exegesis next, I think. So you won't want to miss that. I'll be back again with Gary. And really appreciate everybody listening. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode. Just want to take a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on the Thinking Christian podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
Hey, I'm Dr. Sean McDowell, professor, author, and host of The Sean McDowell Show. I tackle the hardest questions about God, truth, and culture, combining solid research with practical insight and engaging stories so you can build a confident, informed faith. Now available on the Life Audio Network to reach more listeners like you. Follow The Sean McDowell Show on your favorite podcast app or visit lifeaudio.com to start listening.